obligation and compulsory. So now in the 45 to 50 minutes that we have, inshallah, we'll try and encapsulate the meal of zakat. Who must give zakat? When must we give zakat? How do we calculate our zakat? Who can we give our zakat to? And hopefully, by the end of the presentation, we'll be well equipped to be able to answer some of those questions. Now zakat. Now the literal meaning of zakat is growth, blessing, increase. Zakka yuzakki tazkiyatan means an increase. So although when a person gives some zakat and charity, he is assuming my bank balance is decreasing. Allah kya farmate? Allah farmate nahi. Yamhaqullahu riba wa yurbi sadaqat. When a person gives charity, his bank balance is decreasing. When he is gaining interest, usury, then his bank balance is increasing. Aisa nahi hai. Allah farmate yamhaqullahu riba. Allah riba ko mitata hai. Allah destroys riba. Even if a person is assuming he is gaining money, but wayurbi sadaqat, Allah gives increase to the charity. And Allah blesses our wealth. Allah purifies it. Zakka yuzakki, to purify. We have the 100% wealth. Now once we give 2.5% in the path of Allah, the rest of the wealth becomes pure for us to spend. So that's the literal meaning of zakat. And the technical meaning of zakat is that to give a certain percentage as fixed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala upon particular wealth to the deserving people. And as we know, that certain percentage is 2.5%. On every wealth? No. There's only certain wealth. And as we will learn, on gold, on silver, on money, investment, etc. And to the deserving people. Who are the deserving people? Hopefully we will come to learn about them. Now there are almost 28 places in the Quran where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Aqimus salah wa atuz zakah, that namaz ko qaim karo, zakat ko ada karo, that establish prayer and give zakat. Because there is a close link between the two. Dono se dilo ki safai hoti hai. By the virtue of salah, we are able to cleanse our souls, our hearts from the illnesses. Similarly, when we give zakat, وَأُحْضِرَتِ الْأَنفُسُ الشُّحْ, in our hearts is a greed for wealth. Greed for wealth, greed to accumulate wealth. But when a person sacrifices, suppresses, and gives for the sake of Allah, Allah purifies the soul in return. So that was the literal meaning of zakat. And the technical meaning is a fixed percentage, 2.5%. In the worldly sense, tax, everything may be 14, 16, 20, 25%. Here Allah has made our deen so easy that only 2.5%, 97.5% is for yourself. What does the Quran say? The Quran says that those who accumulate gold and silver and do not spend it in the path of Allah, فَبَشِّرْهُمْ بِعَذَابٍ أَلِيمٍ, glad tidings of the torment. उन्हें खुशखबरी दीजिए किस चीज की? अच्छी चीज की नहीं, अज़ाब अलीम की. यौम युहमा अलैहा फी नारी जहन्नम, the very wealth that they didn't give zakat of will be heated on the day of judgment, and their foreheads and their sides and their backs will be branded with them, and Allah will taunt them. فَذُوقُوا, uska maza chako, taste it, this is the consequence of which you hold it and you did not give the zakat of. Similarly, in the hadith, Nabi Kareem sallallahu alayhi wa sallam says, the wealth that we did not give zakat of will be converted and transformed into a snake, a poisonous snake. It will have two eyes and it will encircle and entangle a person's neck. It will bite into the cheeks of a person and it will say, Ana maluk, ana kanzuk. Main tera wo mal hu, main tera wo khazana hu. I am your wealth that you did not give zakat of. May Allah forbid, may Allah protect us. Now we move on to discuss that who gives zakat, who is responsible to pay for zakat. Number one, Muslim. A non-Muslim is obviously not responsible since he must utter the kalima first. Secondly is an adult. Which means that if a इंडिविजुअल इज अ चाइल्ड, वो नाबालिग है, अभी बालिग नहीं हुआ है, अभी बालिग नहीं हुई है, at the age of 7, 8, 9, 10, even if they have thousands of pounds in their bank accounts, they are not liable, they do not need to give zakat. And many a times there are children who their parents have been saving their money in their accounts, 500 pounds, 600 pounds, 1,000, 2,000. Sometimes there are these funds, child trust funds, and the child has thousands of money. Now the parents are not owners of it, they are simply guardians. So they are simply guardians of it, they're not the owners. So who are the true owners? The children. They may not be able to access the money now, but they are still the owners. But as long as they are not baligh, even if they have thousands of pounds, they don't give any zakat for it. Thirdly is sane, sanity. Aqal ho. If only a person has the sanity, they'll be able to appreciate the rulings of Sharia. So agar wo majnoon ho, pagal, diwana ho, us par zakat dena zaruri nahi hai. And the last point is, the person must have complete ownership of nisab. Inshallah, we will discuss what nisab means. Nisab is the minimum amount, kam az kam, the minimum amount a person must possess and own for zakat to be compulsory. So if you have little money, you will not be regarded as rich. You have 50 pounds, 100 pounds, 150, 200, 250. There's a minimum amount. The moment you have nisab, Shariat ki nigah mein, in the sight of the Shariat, now you are regarded as rich. And as we will cover, the nisab in today's calculation is about 370 pounds. That means if a person simply has, for argument's sake, 200, 250, 300 pounds, they're not regarded as rich, so they don't need to give zakat on their money. However, if the child becomes baligh and has 400, 500 pounds, then they've reached the nisab level, the minimum amount required to activate zakat. Again, they won't give zakat now, but they'll give the zakat a whole year afterwards, which inshallah we will cover. Now, calculating zakat. Now, there's a misconception amongst our people. And the misconception is that a whole year has to pass by on the money for you to give zakat. कि पूरा साल गुजर जाए, हौलाने हौल हो, पूरा साल गुजर जाए, on every money, on every penny, only then zakat becomes compulsory on each and every pound of it. This is completely wrong. And I will explain afterwards why there's this misconception as well. It's obvious that when we're earning money, every month we'll have some money in, some money out. So it'd be so impractical, if anything, to be able to calculate which penny, which pound came at which point of the year. So what we mean by a whole year passing by does not mean that the year has to pass by every penny that you have. No. The most important thing is zakat anniversary date. Unfortunately, people don't know that. We have our birth dates, we have other anniversary dates, and there's a set date. Similarly, we all have a zakat anniversary date. And that means there's a particular date in the lunar Islamic calendar wherein you must calculate the zakat then, and you must give your zakat then. You can't give it in advance, but at least by then. Now, majority of us don't know that, or we've forgotten. Basically, the moment you turn baligh, the moment you became an adult, and you had nisab amount, that's the date you must remember forever. Let me give you an example. There's a child, 12, 13, 14-year-old. वो बालिग नहीं है, कुछ पैसे भी नहीं, doesn't have anything. Now they're 14, 15, baligh हो गए, and they've just turned baligh. But they don't have enough money to give zakat on anyway. So let's assume today. Now Eid का मौका हुआ, the 1st of Shawwal. MashaAllah, रिश्तेदार आए, पड़ोसी आए, दोस्तों अहबाब आए, family members came or Eid. And they gave Eid. Now Alhamdulillah, that child now has 500 pounds. And that is nisab amount. When did they give the money? When does he possess and own this nisab amount? 1st of Shawwal. Now for the rest of his life, he will have to remember the 1st of Shawwal. He still won't give any zakat on this 1st of Shawwal. A whole year passes by, and if a whole year after, on the 1st of Shawwal, he still has 360, 370 or more equivalent, then on that money he will give 2.5%. Then again, a whole year passes by, 1st of Shawwal. Now for the rest of his life now, this is sealed. His zakat anniversary date is 1st of Shawwal, because that was for the first time when he got the minimum amount. Yes, unless if a person hits zero, Kuch baki nahi raha. He spent every penny of his. Then we will reset the date. Then the 1st of Shawwal cancels. Now the next time he gets nisab equivalent, he has to register in his head. Then from there, a whole year afterwards, he will have to give his zakat. Inshallah, one or two things will be clarified. The whole idea of this writing is that, look, imagine I only have 1,000 pounds. Pura saal guzar gaya. A whole year passes by, I have 1,000. Tomorrow is my zakat anniversary date. But then today I met someone really generous and they said, here, you have 1,000 pounds on me. Now I have 2,000 pounds. Fast forward tomorrow, I need to give my zakat. Will I give the zakat for 1,000 which I had for a year, or will I have to include the other 1,000 which I've only had for 24 hours? Yes. I will have to give zakat on the total 2,000 pounds, although I just got the addition 1,000 a day before. Same thing, it may be that you receive your wages today, 2 grand, 3 grand, and then tomorrow is your zakat anniversary date. You will have to include that 2-3 grand, although a whole year hasn't passed by. It can be some extreme examples as well. For example, I'm selling my house, and I sell it, and I receive the money. I still have the 100,000 pounds, and tomorrow comes my zakat date. I will have to give zakat on the entire amount. So don't be confused by a whole year passing by. What's the most important thing is, if we can't remember, many of us don't remember when we were young and for the first time we hit the nisab level. So if you're suffering from that problem, in your head, now have a date. For example, 15th of Ramadan. It doesn't have to be Ramadan, but Ramadan is simply easy for us. Why? Because alhamdulillah, charities come, we're a bit more mindful. It becomes easy to calculate it and to offer it. So set a date, 15th of Ramadan. Now that date, you can give zakat in advance. That doesn't mean if some charity collector comes and you can't give your zakat on the 1st, 2nd, 3rd, just make a notice of it. Aaj maine 10 pound diye, 5 pound diye, 20 pound diye. But don't delay after 15 unnecessarily. Also, if you decided to give zakat before, why? Because there was an emergency. All good. But make sure on the 15th you recalculate so that if you had given any less zakat, you can top it up. So remember, the most important thing is that one date. It's a snapshot calculation. On that 15th of Ramadan, how much money do you have? It doesn't matter how much money you had 2 days back or when you receive what money. Do I have nisab equivalent or not? If I do, give 2.5%. So zakat is not only paid on the money that you've had for a whole year. It's a snapshot calculation. That means regardless of the fluctuation, ups, downs, and money in and money out, what matters is on the 15th of Ramadan, for example, how much money do I have? It's an individual obligation. If there are business partners, then it's each partner's responsibility to give zakat per their share. Similarly, in the household, it's the father's responsibility for his own. The child, which is baligh now, let's say 16, 17, his own responsibility. The wife, her own responsibility. Nevertheless, if they act on behalf of others, and the father thinks, chalo mera beta, he's only got 500 pounds, I'll just take his zakat out. Or he knows his wife has this much amount of zakat due, so I will give. That is fine as long as he seeks permission. He tells them, he makes them aware of it. Why? Because niyat is necessary. Unless he does so every year anyway. So the expectation is the wife knows that he will take the zakat out. Now if he takes some zakat and gives it to the charity, without her knowing, it'll be fine. Because it's expectation. Her niyat is already there every year. Otherwise, you would have to seek their permission. Now this slide shows what is nisab. As we said, nisab will come as come the minimum amount that you need to own for zakat to activate. Now I'm using the word activate. Why? The moment a person becomes baligh and has this much amount of money, fauran us par zakat zaruri nahi. It's only now the date is activated. He needs to remember that date when he got that money. A whole year afterwards, on the same date, that's when he will be giving zakat for what he has at that time. Now there are two types of nisab. One is the gold, one is the silver. Many of our elderly folks will know the gold's nisab as sare saat tola, 7.5 tola, and the chandi, the silver, as sare bawan tola, 52.5 tola. Now, if you're confusing tolas and the measurements, then we've just added the grams. So the nisab of the gold is 87.48 grams. That means, imagine a person had nothing else, only gold. If they had 60 grams of gold, 70 grams, they would not be giving zakat. Only if they have 87.48 or above, now they need to start giving zakat. That's what it means by 7.5 tola gold. Now the most important for us is that which is in a darker blue shade, the silver nisab, because that's the nisab we generally use. Because majority of us, we don't only have gold, we'll have a mixture of assets. We'll have money, we'll have different currencies, we'll have gold, we'll have silver. So in that sense, for majority of the cases, we will use silver nisab. Yes, if there are important cases, extreme cases, then the ulama should be discussed with. Nevertheless, the silver nisab is 612.36 grams, which simply means, and you can check it for your own self, if you went on internet and you find out 1 gram of silver, you times it by 612.36 grams, that will tell you the nisab level. Now, today your zakat is perhaps not due. Now your zakat may be due 20th of Ramadan. So what will you do is this. You will go on internet, there's various websites that you can find reliable, and you will find what's 1 gram of silver. Once you know 1 gram of silver, how much it is worth, you just times it by darab de usko, times it by 612.36. So for example, today's value is 1 gram of silver will cost you 61 pence, 0.61. So if you times that by 612.36, that equals to 373 pounds and 28. That means if there's someone who has less money than that, they don't need to give zakat. But if they have that or above, now they have to zakat on it. So that's why the nisab is quite important. It fluctuates, obviously. Now, as you can see, the gold nisab is 3,610. Such a big difference. In the Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, very much similar. But as times have progressed, as times have changed, now I can see the big difference. So generally, the nisab of the gold is overlooked, and we pay more focus to the nisab of silver. Okay, zakat anniversary date, as we said, the moment you hit the nisab, let's say 370 pounds, now you must remember the date, because every year, now you will give your zakat on that date. If you've forgotten already, set a date. Many of us make that mistake. We think, Ramazan aayega, as soon as Ramadan appears, hum zakat de denge, we will give our zakat. That's wrong. Because throughout the whole 29, 30 days, you'll be receiving money, you'll be giving money. How will you be able to calculate accurately? No, that's wrong. There has to be a certain date. 15th means 15th. 20th means 20th. Like I said, you can give your zakat before it, no problem. But at least on that date, you calculate. Kitne paise hai, particularly for businessmen and others. How much money do I have in the bank, at home? How much gold do we have? If there are business assets, stocks and shares and pensions and other things which may be involved, can be calculated accurately per the day. So it's again lunar calendar. Again, for many business people, it may be more appropriate or easy for them to calculate per months of when they will be receiving their invoices, when they'll be paying their taxes. However, here we will be looking at the lunar calendar. Muharram, Safar, Rabiul Awwal, etc. Soon as zakat is due, pay it as soon as possible. To delay it, okay, will be sinful. Now this is an activity, calculating your zakat. So the question is, when will I pay zakat, and how much zakat I pay? When will I pay, and how much zakat? I'll quickly whiz through it. 30th of Shaban, 1438, I had 0 balance. Will I give zakat? No. Does it activate? Do I need to remember the date ever? No. 13th of Ramadan, 200, which is less than nisab, I can ignore date. Now 15th of Ramadan, alhamdulillah, I received some gifts, now 400 pounds. Will I give zakat now? No, but it activates the date. I need to remember now. On 15th of Ramadan, for the first time, I reach nisab. Just remember the date. You don't need to remember the figure, anything. Remember the date. Now, all the months between 15th of Ramadan, 1438 to 1439, I can ignore. As long as it doesn't hit 0. So obviously, as you know, money is increasing, 450, 500. money is decreasing to even 50 pounds, I will not consider any of that. Now the next time I look is 15th of Ramadan 1439. That's when I will be paying my zakat. 1 whole year after the date is activated. That's what we mean by pura saal guzar jaye. That's where the misconception was. Now, what will I give zakat on? 50 pounds? 500? 360? 400? No, I can ignore all the sums. What matters is on that day. Can you see? On 13th of Ramadan, I only had 50 pounds. Now, overnight or so, over a day, now alhamdulillah, I've got 600. So, although 550 pounds, I've only had it since a day or two, still, I will have to give zakat of the whole 600. So, 2.5 over 100 times 600, I'm assuming it's 15 pounds. Okay, now this is one of the most important slides also in the presentation. Once you have that amount of money, and you know you need to give zakat, what must you give zakat on? Do you have to give zakat on every goods in the home? Obviously not. And after looking at this slide, you will understand zakat is so easy. Zakat is only given on gold or silver, money, business assets, investments, livestock. Now each person here can think for their own selves. Not stereotyping, but assuming women will have gold or silver, we won't need to worry so much about gold or silver. That's off. Money, obviously. Business assets, yes, mostly if you're a businessman, you're dealing with business assets. Most of us won't need to worry. Unless, obviously, in today's zamana, in today's era, people may be doing business from home, Instagram, elsewhere. So, yeah, it might still be applicable. Now, the definition of business asset is important, because we'll be covering a slide, and if you understand this principle, it all becomes easy. Okay, business asset is that which at the time of buying, a person makes a sole intention of selling. कि खरीदने के वक्त, at the time of selling, niyat mahaz yahi hai, the intention is I am buying to then sell and to accrue profits. That will respond to so many of the doubts. So for example, if I purchased the house, I'm living in the house for 15, 20 years, now I've put my house for sale. Will I have to give zakat on the value of the house? No. Although I'm selling it, but it's not business asset, because at the time of buying, my intention wasn't solely selling. Similarly, a lot of the questions I receive are about renting. There's a couple of properties I've purchased and I give on rent. Do I need to give zakat on those properties? No. Because the property itself, the house itself is not a business asset. Business asset is you buy with the intention of selling. You're not selling the house, so there's no zakat on the house. Yes, if you have the rental income, if you have the money at the time of giving zakat, then obviously you'll give the zakat on the rental income, on the money. But there's nothing on the house. Another example is that I bought something, now I want to sell. So again, we've discussed that even though you're intending to sell, you never made the intention on buying it, so there's no zakat. Another example is I bought it with the intention of selling it. I'll order some goods online, I'll sell them. Jab ghar aaye, when I received them, I thought, you know what, I can have it for my own self. Main hi rakh leta hu. Now you don't need to give zakat on it. Because although you made the intention of selling, now you've changed your intention. Even if you have a 50-50, कि मैं घर खरीद लेता हूं, let me purchase the house. If I get a good offer for rent पर दे दूंगा, I will give it on kiraya. If needs be, I will have one of my sons living there. If needs be, I will sell it off. So if there is a 50-50 intention, again, there is no zakat on the property. Zakat is only on a business asset if bought with the sole intention of selling. Investments, that includes some, as we'll discuss, investments, pensions, stocks, shares, trusts, and livestock, animal, which majority of us may not be applicable to. Now, once we've appreciated this all becomes easy. Zakat is only on gold or silver, money, business assets, investments, livestock. So will there be the house I live on? No. What if I purchase a land, £1 million worth land to build homes on? Again, there's no zakat on them because it's not the land that I'm selling. Furniture and fittings, Motor vehicles. Imagine there is a household and they've got 5 cars and each car is worth 10 grand. So although the worth of those 5 cars is 50 grand, still there's no zakat. Similarly, some people have different interests. Some people have an interest of collecting watches. Some people have 10, 15 watches. Each is worth 500, 1,000, 2,000 pounds. So if you add the values together, they could add up to 5,000, 6,000. Again, there's no zakat on them because it's not money. It's not gold or silver. It's not a business asset. It's not in shares of pension. It's not livestock. Another example which I'll go through also is diamonds, pearls, rubies. Although they may be worth thousands in themselves, will you have to give zakat on it? No. Although some people get confused, well, they're worth thousands of pounds. Well, they are, but are they one of these? If they're not, there's no zakat on it. So there's no zakat on personal clothing, items, furniture, fixing, vehicles, unless you bought it with the intention of selling. Now we're going to go through each point. Now when we say you have to give zakat on money, it includes all the cash, whether at home, whether in the bank, whether lying anywhere, whether in dollars or euros, in rupees or riyals. It may facilitate that on the day of zakat anniversary, then find out the rate. So for example, if you've got some riyals, some rupees, some dollars, then what's the current rate? And then convert that into pounds, and then add the values and give in pounds if needs be, the zakat. Haram money, obviously there'll be no zakat on that. Why? Not only 2.5%, the entirety, 100% must be given in zakat. Yes, if you owe someone money, you can minus that. So for example, I've got 500 pounds, but I owe my next door neighbor 100 pounds. I don't need to give zakat on 500. I can just minus the 100 and I will give zakat on 400. And by the way, money also includes all currencies, and even today's time, not going into the issue of is it permissible or not. A lot of people ask about bitcoins and other cryptocurrencies. Same. Again, 2.5% will be given on the whole value. Money owed to you. Although I don't have the money on me, if I lend the money to someone else, I will still have to give zakat on it. It's still mine. So you will have to include that. Yes, if it's a big amount and you can't give it now, then wait for the money to be returned, but then you'll have to calculate the previous year's zakat. And the easiest way is just give it zakat every year, although you don't have it. That is known as a strong debt. So it is necessary to give zakat on strong debts. Strong debts are 2 types. That is the money that you lent, the money you gave to someone without any other reason. For example, your next door neighbor were having a renovation, they were in short of 10,000 pounds. Then they knocked at your door, can we have 10,000 pounds? We'll give them to you whenever. So you gave the 10,000 pounds. That's a strong debt. You have to include the 10,000 when calculating zakat. Similarly, if you're a businessman or you're selling business items and you gave it on deferred payment, now they will pay you at the end of the month, you will have to include that. So that's important for businessmen also. They may have given a lot of stock on deferred payment and they are expecting their money afterwards. They will have to include that money when calculating their zakat. So although they don't have the money on them now, they are still the owners of it. Nevertheless, the obligation to pay the zakat is only when they receive the money, but they will have to calculate the previous years. There is no zakat on any other loan or any other debt. Now these are examples. Let me give you an example. In some cultures, the women are given their dowries in big number. So the woman is promised, I will give you 30,000 mahar. And the man hasn't given 30,000 mahar yet. So she is owed that money. Will she include that? Will she include that in calculating zakat? Does she have to give zakat on that 30,000 that she's owed because of the marriage? No. Because it's not money that was given yet to borrow as lending, or it wasn't a business item sold and in exchange the money is given. Same inheritance shares. Unfortunately is a big problem in our communities that the person dies and the money or the land or the houses is left there, and the inheritance is not distributed for years and years. वो घर वो जमीन इंडिया पाकिस्तान बांग्लादेश में पड़ी हुई है, it's been 10-15 years, हकदार वरता यहाँ पे है, yet they are not given their right. But that's another issue. So imagine there's an individual, the family member passed away, they're entitled, they looked at the shares as stipulated by Sharia, they're entitled £10,000. But mirath hasn't been distributed yet. They are owed 10,000. Do they need to give zakat on the 10,000? No. It's not regarded as a strong debt. They're not owed that money because they lent it, or they're not owed that money because they sold a business item. Same outstanding wages. Imagine, alhamdulillah, you've worked for 3 weeks. You're going to get your wages at the end of the next week, and your zakat anniversary date comes. You know you've worked for 3 weeks. You know you're entitled to, let's say, grand wages. But have you been given that money? You owed that money, which they will give you at the end of the month. You owed that money, but it's not in exchange for selling a business item or lending some money, so you don't need to give zakat on that. Same loans advance without any hope of repayment. Sometimes you give money to someone, when you call them, they're not picking the calls. When you text them, they're not even responding. When you knock at their door, apparently they never are home. You've lost all hope. Now you don't need to give zakat. Even if after a few years they make tawbah, they knock at your door, they give you that money, you don't need to calculate the previous years. Outstanding invoices for the sale of personal items. So your own house, it's not a business asset. Your own house, you put it for sale, you sold it, and you are owed £100,000, you don't need to give zakat on it if you don't have it physically then. Now this is a quick calculation. A person has £500, $200, 1,000 rupees. Nowhere near it meets that, but just as an example, just convert the dollars, $200 into pounds. That'll be 200 pounds, is it? So $2, 100 pounds. So that's 100 pounds, 1,000 rupees, 100 rupees. If it's 1 pound, that's 10 pounds. If you add up all the values, it equals out to 610 pounds. So then you just give 2.5 over 100 times a year of 610. Now we move on to the next, gold and silver. As simple as this. Gold and silver, the zakat must be given. Whether it's worn, whether it's stored at home, zakat must be given. Why? There is different schools of fiqh may differ, so you may read something online, someone may say something different, but no. Zakat must be given on the gold or silver, for whatever cause it's worn or stored. Whether it's in the form of a bracelet or necklace, ring, coins, or anything. But if it's an alloy, mixture of metals, then zakat must only be given on the gold or silver there. So you must find out the current value of the, if it's 9 carat, 12, 24, 22. So do the maths and you can. The zakat will be calculated on the resale value. This can be obtained either from the local jewelers or universal measurement. Some people may access the internet, but if it's going to tell you the new gold, the value of new gold, the value will be quite high. So you'll end up paying more. So the best thing is contacting your local jewelers, ask them what's the value of scrap, second-hand gold and silver, what you have, and there you can work it out. There is no zakat on gold or silver which is attached to the body for some reason if someone has a gold tooth. But those things which are detached, like a golden nose ring, then you will have to include and find out how much zakat is due on that. Any other metal, aluminium, platinum, precious stones, pearls, diamonds, regardless of how much it's worth, there's no zakat on it. It's only gold and silver. Again, this is just a quick calculation. 20 grams of 24 carat. What's 1 gram of 24 carat? 10 pounds. 10 times 24. 100 grams of silver. You find out what's the gram of silver. So hypothetical case, if it's 2 times 100, you add the values, 2.5% of that. Now we move on to business assets. Now obviously this will be applicable to some people more than others. As we said, business asset is anything purchased, usko kharidai, with the intention of to sell and accrue, make profits. Now, if you're a businessman and you need to give your zakat, the most important things are 3 for you. Cash, money. Whether in the till, whether at home, whether in the bank, the money owed to you because of selling an item, that's receivables. So cash, the money you have. Receivables is the money that people owe you because of the business items that you've sold. And thirdly is the stock that you are going to sell. That's very important. The actual, so for example, There's so many examples. Let's say I make sofas, I manufacture beds and I sell them. I purchase a land worth £1,000,000. Will I have to give zakat on the land? No, I'm not selling the land. I've got a mashallah factory. It's worth £1,000,000. Do I have to give zakat on that? No, because I'm not selling the factory. I've got 4 or 5 business vans to deliver goods. They're worth £1,000s in themselves. Is there anything on that? No. Same machinery, I have modern machinery worth 60, 70, 80,000 pounds. Do I have to give zakat on it? No. You only give zakat on the actual items which will be sold. So which means the actual bed itself, the wood itself, the frame itself, the sofas themselves. Similarly, if I have a corner shop, I won't give zakat on the actual shop. But yeah, the chocolates, the sweets, the drinks, the spices, the nuts, to milk, to anything I have on that zakat anniversary date, I will look at the selling price. And I will calculate per the selling price. Not the price it costs me, but the selling price. If I have a restaurant or takeaway, same. I will look at and I will calculate the salad, the sauces, the tins of sweet corn, to the bases, to the burger buns, all these things, but not on the machinery, the shop or anything. I hope that's clear. Now, the last paragraph explains that if there are unfinished goods, like there are beds and sofas which are manufactured, which are displayed, which are ready to sell, obviously we'll consider their selling price. As for other things which are unfinished, we will take the price of, if they were to be sold at the current time, how much profits, how much money would we have made? That's the value we will give them. So there's no zakat on land, building, machinery, equipment, fixtures, vehicles, etc., as long as you're not selling those things. And outstanding service receivables, that if you provided a service and you're owed that money, just like we said, we go to work and the wages, we don't include that until we have it on us.
Sir, I've got a question.
Yeah, no problem.
In regards to the business goods, will I calculate, example, I've got goods worth £1,000 and I'm envisaged to sell them for £2,000. Will I calculate on that 1,000 profit I'm going to make, or is it I'm going to calculate on 2,000?
2,000. Yes. So that's 2,000. So although it costs 1,000 with profits, how much would you make overall? So overall, 2,000 zakat must be given on 2.5% of that. Properties, we've already discussed this, that if you have a property, if it's bought with the intention of selling, only then you got to give zakat, otherwise no. So if you want to stay, there's no zakat. To give on rent, no zakat. If you're uncertain, 50-50, again no zakat. Now this is a simple example, hopefully this will make sense. If Aqib has savings of £10,000, he alhamdulillah has a mobile phone shop and a grocery store. Mobile phone shop, the mobiles cost him 8 grand, but he put some for sale for 10 grand. Grocery cost him 4 grand, but he sells it for 5 grand. How much will he give his zakat? £10,000 cash, he will have to give zakat on that. Will he look at the 8,000 figure or the 10,000? Not the 8,000 that cost him 10,000. And again, grocery, he won't look at the 4,000 figure, 5,000. So 10 plus 10 plus 5, 25,000. So he'll do 2.5 over 100 times 25,000. Whatever number that is. Any quick maths here? Allahu Alam. Now we move on to shares. Now, as simple as this, again another argument. Are they permissible or not? If some scholars have allowed them, what are the conditions? That could be read or discussed and learnt in another place. Over here, we're focused on, fine, for those shares which have been permitted, how will we calculate our zakat? It's simple, but there's 2 options. Number 1, first we will ask the individual, what was the intention of purchasing the shares, the unit trust, the equity investment? Same with crypto assets or anything. If the intention is quick buy and sell, we want to make profits, buy, sell, buy, sell, buy, sell, then we will have to give 2.5% on the whole current market value. So the amount of shares I have, how much each share is worth, at the values, how much is my share worth in total, and 2.5% of that. An example is given afterwards. However, if my intention isn't quick buy and sell, Like many of our parents and others may have had, and they're there for 10, 15 years, rather than money in the bank, now they're just there. So if it's a long-term investment, then you don't need to give zakat on the whole holding, on the whole current market value. Only on the zakatable assets within the company. And we said, zakatable assets are whatever money they have, whatever gold and silver they have, whatever business assets they have, whatever other investments they have, whatever livestock they have, etc. Now, that becomes very difficult. Like, how will you know? Well, you can work it out, but many other people may not know what are the zakatable assets. So a number of scholars have gone through so many shares and have calculated and have come to the conclusion, generally, it's no more than 25% of the whole value. So let's say your shares are worth £500. If your intention was long-term investment, you don't need to give 2.5% on the whole of 500. You only have to give 2.5% on the 25% of 500. So 2.5% on £125 or so. Now this is the calculation. Adam has the following shares: 20 shares in GlaxoSmithKline, 20 shares in EE, 20 shares in BMW, 50 shares in whatever. Now obviously you will have to look at what's the value of the share, not when you purchased it today. Today is my zakat anniversary date. That's why it's so important to know the zakat anniversary date. So for example, if one share in Glasgow is worth 5 times 20, EE is 5, so 5 times 20, BMW is 250, so 250 times 20, and Zara is 2, so 2 times 50. Add all those values up. Now how much zakat will I pay? Again, we go to the previous slide. If my intention with all these shares were quick buy and sell, then I have to give 2.5% of the whole thing, which I then worked out was £8.75. But if your intention with buying all these shares were long-term investment, then you don't need to give 2.5% on the whole thing, only 25% of it, which obviously will work out much less, £2.19. Now we move on to pensions. Again, this is something, it may be applicable to some and may not be relevant to many others. So that's why, without going into the rationale and the explanation behind it, I'll just tell you how this works. Now, a lot of people will have pensions, particularly, alhamdulillah, people are working, people already are investing money in different ways, they'll already be on some schemes. Now, if someone says that, do I have to give zakat on pensions or not? We'll say, well, there's two types of pensions: defined benefit, defined contribution. If you're on defined benefit, do not worry, you don't need to. And the example of that is final salary schemes, etc. Most of the public sector, teachers, those working in the government, NHS, had defined benefit. Again, if you're unaware and you don't know, you can easily find out online, or you can always ring them up and ask them. So if it's defined benefit, you don't need to worry. Every month, certain amount, certain pounds are deducted from your wages. They take that money, they use their own money, and then after you retire also, they make a calculation, they have a formula, the amount of years, for example, given in service, and then they'll work it out. So there's no zakat on that. But defined contribution, some examples of that, personal pension schemes, money purchase, and others are given here. So defined contribution, where you're actively contributing, and your employer is acting on your behalf. It's as though you've appointed him as a fund manager, and he's investing your money and their money, and they're making profits thereof. Now it's your profits, it's growing, you have a say, hence you do have to give zakat on that. So defined benefit, there's no zakat. Defined contribution, there is zakat. But how much zakat? Is it 2.5% on the whole thing? No. That's when it gets slightly confusing, that it depends. Again, some scholars have looked at different types of pensions and have come to the conclusion that generally the zakatable assets in direct property fund is only 15%. So you don't need to give 2.5% on the whole your pension pot, only 15% of it, if your pension pot is direct property fund. If it's a Sharia compliant fund, then you only have to give 2.5% on the 26% of the overall, because the others will be non-zakatable, buildings and lands and other things. If you've got an equity fund, then it's 27%. So it gets difficult. Obviously, each person will look for his own self. Multi-asset then it's a 50%. If it's a bonds or fixed income, then it's 100%. Now, can I take something off my zakat? Yes. Overdue payments. So for example, if you owe someone, you can minus. I owe someone £100, I will only give zakat on £400. Similarly, bills and other costs which are already accrued and incurred, the phone bill, the electricity bill, the water bill, the council tax, if these taxes and all these bills have already been accrued from the previous year, the financial year or anything, they can all be minus. So if you've not paid that in contracted, if you've not paid those bills, you can minus. But future expenses can't. Future rent, future bills, future taxes cannot be deduced. Second point is important. Now I want to make that distinction. If it's a private loan, you can deduct the entire amount. Imagine, for example, you wanted to buy a house, you needed 50 grand. You fell short 50 grand. And you went to some friends, family members, relatives, and you borrowed 50 grand. Now, when you're calculating your zakat, you can minus the entire amount, 50 grand. But if it's not a private loan, if it's a long-term debt from, for example, a bank or so, then you cannot deduct the entire amount. Otherwise, some people on a mortgage of 100,000, 150,000, they can't minus all of it. They can only deduct that which is due in the next 12 months. Over here, it's a very important question. I've added later on, but anyway, student loans. So many people may have the money. Do they have to give zakat on it? Yes, they have to give zakat on it. But can we not minus it? Because we still owe the student loan company. So what we will say to it is not really yet. Why? It's only once you graduate, you start earning a certain amount, only then, and again, not the entire amount is debt due on you. It's only a certain percentage based on how much you're earning. It may well be that a person never earns that much amount and it all is overlooked. So therefore, they cannot minus the amount they owe until they start earning under 12 months installments. You cannot take off future expenses, debt not payable in the next 12 months, unlawful money, because the entire amount has to be given in charity to the poor people. Zakat calculation, this is just a summary of everything that we've learned. We can overlook this slide. But as you can see, generally a person will encounter different questions, and do they have to give zakat on it, or can they deduct it? All these will be relevant there. So when do I pay my zakat? As we said, on your zakat anniversary date, after the whole year has passed by, you can give it in advance, but don't delay it unnecessarily. Prepay is allowed, but again, intention should be made. Now we move on to the last section. Hopefully we'll try and wrap this up in the next 3 to 4 minutes. Who can I give my zakat to? Now the poor people whose zakatable assets, that means gold, silver, money, and surplus non-zakatable assets do not reach the value of nisab. So they don't have enough money. They don't have enough gold or silver. And even the surplus non-zakatable assets, if their values were added, don't add up to the nisab level. Imagine someone's got only 20, 30 pounds, only a bit of silver, a few grams, and also their surplus non-zakatable assets, for example a TV, it's only worth 50 pounds. So even if you add the values of those things which are surplus, then they don't reach the nisab level. Inshallah, we'll look at some examples afterwards. Who can you not give zakat to? A non-Muslim, a rich person, someone in the family of Nabi Karim Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam because they're pure, the child of a wealthy father, ascendants and descendants, parents, grandparents, children, grandchildren. Yes, brothers and sisters, siblings, aunts, and all others can be given. In fact, it's more rewarding if they are worthy. You'll receive 2 rewards. Yeah, of enjoining relationships and of zakat as well. It cannot be given for, just yesterday I received the question on building wells, mending roads, constructing even hospitals. No. Tamliq is necessary, transferring the money into the ownership of the poor person. Then if they want, they can pay off their fees at the Darul Uloom. Then if they want, they can pay off their fees for the operation at the hospital. Then if they want, they can use it in the well. Unless we use that money to make a house, and then the whole house is transferred into the ownership of the poor person. Now this is just an example which we'll just flick through, that we've got 3 people. that, for example, let's look at Muhammad. He's got cash 50 pounds, silver 50 pounds. Now, in terms of zakatable assets, that only equals to 100 pounds. So he won't be giving zakat. House, that's seen as a need. Bed is seen as a need. Fridge, as a need. Television isn't a need. So it's surplus, 40 pounds. Unused goods, never uses them. Doesn't need them, 30. So 40 and 30, 70 pounds is surplus. So 100 from zakatable assets plus 70, that's only 170. That doesn't reach the nisab. So Muhammad can be given zakat. Although he's got a little of money and he's got a house as well. He's got a bed, he's got many things, but they are seem as zaruriyat, the essentials. Now, who should I give my zakat to? If you've got close relatives, it's more rewarding to give to them. Locals, people in desperate emergency need, students of knowledge. What must I do when giving zakat? Calculate the amount. If you need to minus, you can deduct that. Confirm and verify it's the correct amount. Give to the person deserving. Unfortunately, if we can't ourselves go, then give it to a reliable charity and organization. Make the intention. Now, zakat can be given in cash or kind. Mostly we give in cash anyway. But if there was a businessman, like previously there's been, for example, pharmacies, where there's been some pandemic in the world and they needed some vaccines or injections or medicines, where they gave their zakat in the form of those. So which we would also do. So that's the end of it. Zakatable assets minus the amount of money you owe others will tell you the net zakatable asset. These are just child trusts for people ask that if the child, it belongs to the child, not the parents. So if the child is now baligh, then even if it's 5,000-6,000, no zakat is due. But the moment they become baligh, although they don't have control, although until they don't turn 18, they can't take the money and access it, still, since it's growing, it's investing, they still have to give zakat once they've turned baligh for until 18. Yes, they can choose to give it afterwards, but it is due. Student loans we've discussed, money saved for a house or money to go for Hajj, as long as the transaction hasn't occurred yet, you've not signed a contract and agreement, you still have to give the zakat. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has the ability to understand and appreciate, and may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala purify our souls, purify our wealth as well. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make this a means of Jannatul Firdaus. Ameen tum ameen. Wa akhir da'wana alhamdulillah. Yeah.
You mentioned about the Nabalan child. If I give 5,000, shall that be zakat?
No, you don't need to give zakat because you're no longer the owner. Now the child is the owner.
Another issue is that if I have a plan, I bought a retention of visa, but now I have 50-50, not 100%, I get the house. Is it 50-50? Consider
Okay, if the intention is that 50-50, but if I get a good purchaser, then I will purchase it, then you would have to give it. Yeah. Yeah, if it's same that you will have zakat must be given on that. Yeah. Although it's